Hello and welcome to the Work in Real Life podcast. I'm Jenny Winspear.
And I'm Marcus Burrell.
And today we're going to be talking about politics.
Eek.
Is this a workplace discussion?
Well, it's a juicy one, isn't it? Because I've always been relatively interested in politics, I guess. I remember when I was younger and we'd be like having dinner with my grandparents and me and my granddad would always get in like political chats.
How young are you talking?
Oh, quite young. Like as long as I can remember, I've definitely always had an opinion, which then kind of led into having a political opinion.
Okay.
Not necessarily a political affiliation.
Okay.
But definitely an opinion. But what about you? Are you...
I never really followed politics. I've got into it more recently. I think because of the impact that it does have on business. Like I follow it to know how my work's going to change. You know, when I'm in an industry that is volatile at the moment, so I've really got into it with like the US election, and I did get into it with Brexit as well. I think as my values have become more concrete, I've followed politics a little bit more, but definitely when I was younger I was not interested. Sometimes it just stresses me out following it. I get really worked up, so like I sometimes have to shut myself up from it as well.
And would you, is it too early to dive into do you reckon you're left leaning or right leaning?
I'm totally left. Yeah. Are you right?
I don't. I find those labels aren't useful.
You're right.
No, I wouldn't say I'm right wing, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the whole political discussion, or whenever you're talking about politics, always comes with strong labels.
Yeah.
And that to me is my biggest issue with
because
it.
There are some political views which cross over. Like I don't think everything left, like I don't think people are always just everything left. Maybe they are a little bit, but like there'll be some views that cross over, so it's not easy. There's like a continuum, isn't there? You might be right on some things and left on some things.
Well, exactly. And I think as a society or as a culture, we're very bad at believing, and I think I've spoken about this before, but like package deal beliefs where, like, for example, earlier when we were talking about doing this podcast and I said there's something positive about Donald Trump, for example, and I could see your blood absolutely boiling because normally, or people kind of are very quickly to go, so if I said, oh, I voted Corbyn or I voted Trump or whatever, you instantly, there's a load of associations that go with that. But that doesn't necessarily mean I support all of them, because ultimately you're choosing between two things, right? Which in certain instances is a pretty shit decision to have to make because you're choosing between two evils, right?
And do you think these type of discussions are like suited to the workplace?
I think there should be more of them. I think it's really good to have healthy political debate.
Yeah.
They also can obviously ruffle feathers.
Yeah.
Get you in some hot water and maybe limit productivity, because I'm sure you could have like a whole afternoon. All you've got to do is drop like a bomb of a political question of a Friday afternoon.
Okay, what's your big... what would you ask?
Like a bomb.
Yeah.
Well, the Donald Trump thing, obviously,
at
the moment is great, like, because you could just start talking about him and instantly everyone's ears kind of prick up and everyone seems to have a really strong opinion, which I think is good. Like, that to me is one of the like good things about Trump, is that rightly or wrongly him being in power has made more people more interested in politics, right? Because it now feels like it's affecting them.
Actually,
more.
Now that you say that, I've got a fun stat on that, because I was looking at voter turnout, and in America, the voter turnout for this election was 63.9%, which, take it or leave it, is it good or not? I don't know. However, in the last 112 years, the only other election that exceeded 63% was the JFK and Richard Nixon one. So I think you're right in that it has made people more interested in politics. By the way, voter turnout in the UK is much bigger. Which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But the best voter turnouts in the US are the ones that cause the most controversy. Which is interesting, because then it kind of indicates that politicians who do take a really strong stance on it can actually increase engagement from people, because people either feel really strongly against or for. I think it's quite an interesting...
Yeah, it is interesting how that always plays out. But what about you? Do you think political conversations... I mean, I'm pro workplace political conversations. I think it's good. I think it's healthy to have disagreements, and you don't want to live in an echo chamber at work, but obviously can get a bit spicy sometimes.
Yes, so spicy.
Yeah.
I I like any debate. I think there's constructive ways to have conversations. And I think if you're creating a really inclusive workplace, you should be able to talk about politics in a way that you respect someone's opinion, you try and understand their viewpoint. It's like with anything, it's the same as religion. You might not have the same religious beliefs, but you still have to respect and try and understand and explore, why they think these certain things. I think politics is the same to a degree. It's very hard because people do feel very strongly. So it's very hard to talk constructively about it when you're like, well, Trump's, made abortion illegal in a lot of states. He's done that. And I feel very strongly that shouldn't be the case. So if you're telling me that you agree with that, I'm going to probably think less of you as a person. But you have to try and be constructive. Okay, why are you pro that? And, that's just my political views that's actually giving me such a strong response. So it's... I think it can have its place if you can speak constructively, but I don't think a lot of people can, and that can then cause a lot of conflict.
Yeah, it definitely can cause conflict, but I think that in my view is why it's a good place to have that, or not necessarily a good place, but I think more political conversations should be had, and work is a good place to start because we're obviously there all the time, and people are just out of practice about having difficult conversations, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's very difficult to find people that you can have a disagreement with and actively communicate about it and not even necessarily find a level playing field. I think people think you have to find a solution or convince the other person that you're right and they're wrong. You can agree to disagree. You can agree to disagree and you haven't got to fall out about it. And just like anything, like I could support Man United and someone else supports Man City. It doesn't mean that instantly I'm like, I'm not talking to you anymore. Let's fall out. I don't want to work with you anymore,
Yeah.
I think we need to get better at it.
I agree. I know you did some of the research today, which I was loving, getting the stats, but I loved your first one, which was 54% of employees feel uncomfortable when politics come up in workplace discussions.
Yeah.
Why do you think that might be?
Because of everything we've detailed there. I think it's just like, I think a lot of people would maybe feel as if they aren't educated enough about politics to have an opinion, which kind of winds me up because I think that's the very point of politics, is that you don't necessarily have to have an in-depth knowledge of it for your opinion to be valued, because that is democracy, right? Is that everyone has an opinion, whether or not you've read deeply into... Like, I've never read a policy in my life that anyone's published.
Like manifesto.
And, not many people have, but it doesn't mean I can't have an opinion about the outcome.
But this also brings me to the point of... I've actually got a quote from, who was it? But basically saying that political opinion is not opinion, it's just what the media portrays it is. Like, if you're not doing your research into what politicians are actually putting down as, like, for Trump, his executive orders, like what he'd lodged as, like, this is what I'm going to do, and then can you really talk about it? Because all you've been responding to is what you see in the media. Is like the headline pieces, the controversial pieces. That's what creates such strong views. Whereas
the fake news,
exactly,
yeah. But I think that's exactly why you need to have the conversations, because then if I'm talking about something that I don't know about and someone can correct me and inform me, then if I didn't have that conversation, I'm never going to know whether I was actually wrong. Right? So it doesn't make your opinion invalid.
You want to test your thought process, Surya.
Yeah, and some people have to, like, think out loud, and I'd rather be wrong and know I'm wrong. Not that I've ever been wrong.
Yeah, of course.
But do you see what I mean? Like, I'd rather someone call me out on something that is factually incorrect and have that conversation rather than drift through life just assuming that, like, I'm right about it. You know?
I think it's a really interesting one because people feel so strongly about it. And actually... 40% of Gen Z and millennial workers would consider leaving their company if its CEO expressed political views that they disagree with. Like 40%. That's how strongly people feel about it. Yeah. So as a CEO, like, what is the stance? Do you take a stand and say, like, I'm against Trump and I'm not rolling back our DEI initiatives, for example? Or do you keep quiet in the risk that you might alienate that proportion of workers that feel strongly that DEI initiatives suck and we need to get rid of them? Like, what do you do?
I think there's the diplomatic answer and then there's the kind of, like, what I would do answer. I think it also really depends on the industry that you're in. Like, if you're, and what your brand is all about. So if you're, because you kind of have to, in these instances, separate CEO brand and company brand. But that's becoming increasingly difficult, right? Because your opinion of Elon Musk, for example, is going to inform your opinion about whether or not you'll ever buy a Tesla, right? So that's all happening at the moment, which is very interesting. But there is something to be said for brands that can strategically align with political activations and kind of piggyback on the success of them and invite more people to their tribe because of their affiliations. So you've just said there that 40% of people wouldn't work with someone, was it? With the CEO?
With the CEO, if their political views was something that they had disagreed with.
Right, but that means that 60% would work with him, right? Because they do agree with him potentially. So there's that chunk of people that would have an affiliation with those views. So it's like...
I guess it depends on the view. I wouldn't take the stat in that way.
Yeah, well, what I guess I more mean is that, like, for everyone that you're alienating with any sort of opinion, you're also probably attracting another group that will have that opinion, which could be good for
Well, this
business.
is what Amazon have started doing with their, like, come into the office and, they've rolled back their DEI initiatives and stuff, and they're now attracting... I think I actually saw Elon Musk talking about the type of people he wanted to attract, and, like, the stuff that he's putting in place is that if he has a view on it, he will attract the people that he wants in there. But it goes so against the benefits that you get from diversity of thought.
Yep.
Like, there's so much research around how diverse backgrounds, cultures, beliefs encourages innovation, creativity. Like, that's in a place like Amazon, that is what you need to do to get ahead and get competitive advantage. So this kind of rollback of, we're taking a strong stance that is this. It's like, well, there's so much research. Like, there's a reason we've been going in this direction in the first place. There's so much research against it. And I don't know that a strong viewpoint without founded by evidence, it's just people getting on their high horse.
Yes. No, I think it can be. And it is sticky and it is difficult because with the whole, especially with the diversity and inclusion piece, if someone is to have a certain opinion that then feels like certain people are excluded from conversations, it's hard. I don't know quite where I land on it. I'm like, whilst there can be ways that you can kind of utilize opinions and stances on political agendas to kind of further your message and the political message at the same time, which might be good for business, there's also the risk of what you're saying there, where if you go too far that way, then you are just in an echo chamber of the same opinions, which ultimately is going to have a ceiling, right, for the innovation within your business, for sure. And I agree with that. And you can see it happen at work sometimes. You're probably the same. If you're sitting in a room and everyone agrees, you're like, oh, right.
I love it when people disagree with me. I don't just say yes because, I'm the one, like, I want to hear everybody else's opinions. I want people to say, oh, well, have you thought about this? Because it challenges my perspective as well. And I do change my thinking based on, what people say. And this is also coming back to why I think it's important to have political discussions. Yes, it can cause controversy, but at the same time, it's good to test my beliefs on this. Like, it's good to understand what grounding I have for having that belief. Is it just a value of mine and I've seen headlines, or have I done a bit of research into, like, the impact that some of these policies might be able to have? It's good to test and learn from each other. Like, I love a debate like that.
Yeah,
I think that's why we even got into podcasting in the first place.
I think that's arguably why we get along. Is like, give us a topic.
We debate.
Yeah. So going back to just a good opportunity to talk about, because you've just said that you love having disagreements.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Come on then, hit me.
What do you think is going to be the impact of the Trumps of the world gaining power, like, on the workplace? What do you think that's going to do to the workplace, like, on a global scale? Because whatever's happening in America is happening or has an effect, right, on the rest of the world.
So the first impact that Trump is having, and I'm going to specifically talk about Trump because politics impacts business. Like, the people who work in business and try and ignore politics, and they're like, politics has no place in the workplace, are idiots, because basically, if you run a business, you will be affected by policies. So immigration laws, for example, Trump is getting much more fixated on, like, we're not letting people come into this country unless it is done in this particular way. We're going to reduce the amount of people that can come into America and more Americans can prosper. I don't know if that's exactly what he says, but that standpoint will affect businesses who recruit people from other places, from overseas. It will impact the technology sector, for example, because they won't be able to hire in as many external people who have qualifications in technology and are better skilled in this space because they can't get visas. So I think immigration is a big one. We talked about diversity and inclusion, but that is having rumbling effects in the industry. Everyone's a little bit nervous. He's told all federal workers who work in the DEI space that they are no longer, they're basically put on leave because he doesn't see the benefits to this.
Right.
And it blows my mind because I'm like, you're denying straight facts. Like there's so much research out here, and the companies who are going, oh yeah, we're going to follow suit, that's fine. I think they're just lazy. They can't be bothered to do DEI right. They haven't successfully embedded it and been authentic with it, that they're seeing the business benefits from it. That's the only reason people are happy to strip back their DEI efforts, because they're not actually giving it due attention. So I think that will have an impact as well. And then I've also seen that because he's very keen on like all for business, like he's very strong on a lot of his policies, that he's like stripping back worker rights. So in terms of unions and stuff, like even like health and safety is getting a lot less. So you know, the people who say politics has no place in the workplace, absolutely wrong. Like it does. It really impacts.
It's going to impact you. Yeah.
Have you seen any? Doesn't have to be Trump specifically, but do you have any sort of thoughts about how politics will affect the workplace?
I mean, so just playing devil's advocate in kind of response to what you're saying there about those things, I think, how do I word this without getting cancelled? So I think Trump and that whole mindset, so whether it's Trump, whether it's Farage in the UK, whatever, I think people have just grown really tired, business included, of politicians talking shit and getting nothing done. And that's kind of led to this kind of political apathy, or this kind of apathy towards people who are in positions of power. They just don't believe that they're going to get anything done anymore, which is why I think that there's been this kind of anti-movement against government, and these sort of like anti-politics political figures, i.e. Donald Trump, who's arguably a businessman, really, over anything else, has now kind of, his bolshy attitude of I'm going to get shit done has kind of become very attractive, because the kind of how slow the churnings of change have been over, like, even our lifetimes in 10 years. I don't feel like anything's really happened. Like, can you remember anything a politician's ever said and then actually experienced the change or felt any different? Because maybe I'm not tuned into it enough, but I can't think of, other than maybe student fees or student loans going up, which impacted me negatively.
Well, that's the thing. People only remember if it impacts them. And I was in Australia for a lot of the time. I was sort of thinking about politics, and I didn't vote. So that's why I'm kind of a little bit disconnected. But I do see your point about getting shit done. But just because he's, you know, throwing his toys out of the pram and getting shit done doesn't mean it's the right, like, it's the right thing to do. I actually saw a clip the other day of him signing all his like executive orders that he'd said he was going to deliver, and as you say, you know, he is delivering and signing them. Someone puts a paper in front of him to sign, and he was like, oh, what's this one? And he's like, this is the withdrawal from the World Health Organization. And Trump's like, ooh, that's a big one. And he like gets his pen out and he signs.
It is worrying how like jovial it all seems when it's in front of him like that. That's what does make me worry.
Because he's an idiot.
Yes, no, but like I'm fully here for the getting shit done thing. And I appreciate that getting the wrong thing.
But like
done
Obama got stuff done. He did healthcare, didn't he? He brought in Obamacare.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I say, I don't know enough about it, but I think that's why I wouldn't say support Trump, but resonate with that approach, because I feel incredibly frustrated in my day-to-day life when stuff doesn't get done. So when you take that up to like a national or global scale, I think that's why people have ended up voting him in, because it feels like even when he's just renamed the Gulf of Mexico, right, to the Gulf of America or whatever, and people all think it's laughable, but I'm like, no, he's very clever, because he understands that makes everyone think he's getting stuff done, which is why people have voted him in, right, with this whole Make America Great Again. But that's what a lot of people is making America great again.
It's such a good marketing slogan, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I've used it in satire before, because it is punchy. Like, he has a great team of intelligent people behind him, but you know, running the country by billionaires, I'm not sure what that's going to do to the state of the world.
I'm not saying, like just to reiterate, I'm not saying I support his policies. I'm saying I support people that get stuff done, because I think the two outcomes of that are, you've either got the thing done and it works, or you've got the thing done and it doesn't work, and then you have to solve that problem. And I think for everything that he does that might negatively impact stuff, that gives someone an opportunity to then
make the case for change.
Make the case for change,
more
sort it out, get off their ass and get the alternative thing done, rather than just sort of sitting back and not doing anything, you know?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to change tact a little bit and ask a bit of a left field question. If you saw someone on social media who posted like a really strong, so this is going up on social media, and I've said very strong views about Trump.
Danger.
And you might be, we are getting cancelled after this episode.
Yeah.
Would you use that in your decision making for hiring them?
I think anyone would be lying if they said they wouldn't take it into account, because it'd be hard to, like, especially if it was something really abrasive. But I also do think that if I saw something and just saw someone having an opinion, I like that, because people who are vanilla and don't have opinions, I'm like, come on, what's the point?
Add something to the conversation.
Just give something. Don't sit on the fence. But I'm the same with that with my marketing approach with brands as well. I'm like, look, don't sit on the fence. Stand for something. It's a good position to have, because then you can, drive value by the stance that you've taken. But on like an individual level, like it's hard, because you can make the wrong assumption through a political opinion. Like I was saying earlier, they're not package deal beliefs. Like someone could, for example, support, like someone who voted Brexit, for example. I'm sure that they've got their reasons, and if I was to just reject them on the basis without hearing their backstory, their backstory,
what's led them to have this belief,
then that's on me, really. Do you know what I mean? That's me not like kind of giving them the time of day, which I think is bad. I'm not saying that I have the capacity to do that, because if I saw someone with a political opinion I disagreed with, it would be very hard to be like, come on board, But what about you? What do you think?
I'm conflicted. I'm an internal conflict, because I, like you, would want to hear the backstory and not make a decision based on that. But we're also a very values-based organisation. Like if someone is outwardly going there and saying, well, we agree that abortions should happen, or we agree that we're rolling back DEI initiatives, I'm like, well, our whole service line is DEI and being inclusive and supporting women, and like, all of those things go right against who we are as a business. So whilst I would never, I would take the time to understand potentially, but I do think it would impact whether I would hire them. And in all honesty, I want to say, we want the diversity of thought, we want different viewpoints and everything, but as a business, we have such strong values that it would be hard to get someone who misaligns with that, because they're not authentically representing the brand.
Yes, I agree. And that's so integral to being like a competitive business in this day and age, by leaning into your values and building a team that's based around it. But then how, this is where this
goes into the question.
Yeah, I know. How can you... No, that sounds a bit strong.
No, because how can you have a values-based organisation practice and preach that, but then still get diversity of thought and challenge and constructive...
Yeah, well, how can you on the one hand be saying diversity and inclusion is really important, but I'm now excluding you...
Exactly.
You can't. For your opinion.
You can't do that.
So it is hard. But interestingly as well, because we're talking about sort of brands and businesses here. So between August 2019 and October 2023... about 20% of consumers boycotted a brand due to its political stance.
That's a huge portion of the market.
Yeah, just going...
20%.
Yeah.
And people are using products, if we're just talking on a product-based line, people use products that are aligned with their values. I think especially with the younger generations, we are seeing people lean towards much more sustainable approaches, or they'll look for actually what is the company evidencing to its values? Is it doing... if people value diversity, inclusion, I keep talking about it because it is my service line. I'm like, right, it's on the brain. Yeah. But they will look for an organisation that actively lives and breathes those things. It's not just words on a wall these days.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, the other stat I've got underneath that is approximately 31% of voters under 50 believe brands should advocate for political change. So people younger people want brands to be more politically engaged, and then compared to only 14% of those over 50. So older people are basically saying, I'm using the word old loosely, apologies if you're 50 plus, and I don't think you're old if you're 50 plus. But basically, the older you are, the less you think brands should be involved in political stuff, and the younger you are, the more you think brands should be involved in political stuff, which I think is really interesting.
It is, and it's actually a little bit scary with the age that we're getting into now, because influencers have a huge impact on what their followers think. Taylor Swift recently, she's famous for being one of the first, well, probably not one of the first, but being so outspoken about who she was voting for and trying to get her followers to vote for it. And it is scary, the following that can come from that. Like, yes, Taylor Swift I was fine with because she was on the same kind of political views as I was, but what if it was somebody who was completely opposing mine, and they've suddenly got a huge followership that actually go by that as well? So we talk about brands, but people these days as well.
Because people are brands, aren't
exactly.
they now?
And it goes back to your point of like the CEO, if they put out a political opinion and it's very strong, we have people leaving the workforce again.
Yeah, I mean, and interestingly, and pardon the pun, so all the celebrity endorsements and stuff that, oh crikey, who was even the opposing part?
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, so she had loads of celebrity endorsement.
Yeah.
But she still lost. So it's like, whilst what you're saying is completely true, it's like, how, if I was a politician right now, I'd literally be like, we're meant to be doing influencers now. Oh, influencers don't work anymore. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a tricky landscape.
Kamala Harris, I can't even say her name, but she had a few barriers because she came into the running a bit later as well. And the celebrity thing was kind of just let's get this in really quickly.
It's just
like, why is Beyonce?
It was like the marketing equivalent of just chucking the kitchen sink is what it felt. It's like, Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You're
Come
up.
on.
Yeah. How much do I have to pay you to back me? You know?
Yeah, and that's another question. Should they be used in that way? Like, should they be using their platforms? We said yes, but actually, is that going to be harmful in the future based on money? Like, what money you can chuck at it? People can be bored.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to kind of empowering people to have enough capacity to critically think about things when, for example, their celebrity kind of they idolise says insert political opinion here, that they've actually kind of had a look and gone,
do I believe in that? Do I want
is
people
this actually an
following
authentic opinion?
Yeah.
Or are they just saying it? And also, you probably shouldn't be like, it's going to be very hard to remove yourself from the environment where a celebrity doesn't have influence over your decision making. But if you're voting or buying something because a celebrity or influencer has told you to do so, and solely on them doing that, then
that is the way that we're going. I wish I had some stats around that.
No, I'm a marketeer, so I'm taking that as like I'm actively kind of, that's a good strategy. But at the same time, as an individual consumer, you do need to be a bit more savvy,
Okay, so I thought we could play a game called Real or Fake News. Was it Trump who coined fake news? I think it was. So we are on brand today talking about Trump. Was it Trump?
I feel like it probably was.
Or was it someone in response to Trump? Yeah, fake news. Yeah. It was him. I just heard it in his voice. Okay, so I've got 4 statements here that I'm going to read to you, and some are true and some are fake. And basically, it's to talk about how political movements can impact businesses.
Right.
So you got to tell me if it's real or fake and why you think that.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So in response to state laws banning plastic straws, a coffee giant implemented a policy to eliminate all plastic straws worldwide.
I'm going to go true because I feel like it was Starbucks.
It was. Correct. Ding, ding, ding.
It's simple.
You got such a buzz with that. I loved it. Yes, they did. So this obviously is on the kind of environmental, like that could be quite left-leaning.
Yeah, but that's a great example of what I'm talking about, where as a brand you can kind of align with kind of like a political motivation, not necessarily a political figure, but like something that has an impact positively on society that is making people choose you over a competitor. That's great. Yeah. Like, I see no issues with that. I know a lot of people would be like, it's greenwashing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, at least they're trying. Yeah. Do you see what I mean?
And it actually impacts the environment.
Yeah, well, I don't think how many bloody straws they probably have.
I know.
You know?
Okay, a major airline banned passengers from wearing political merchandise, citing it as a distraction to flight attendants. I'm just imagining like a Make America Great Again hat.
I knew you were instantly thinking of that. It would be that. Well, didn't they did... There was the Just Stop Oil thing where they banned people wearing that, right? That was real news, I think.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Well, because, people like... There was, I think there was a guy on like a stag do, and they dressed him up in Just Stop Oil, and then he wasn't allowed on the plane or something. Lucy, remember that?
Is it true or false then that an airline banned passengers from doing that?
I'm going to go with true again.
That's false.
But you could see that happening.
You could see that happening.
You could definitely see that happening.
Exactly, because also if they're trying to be inclusive in their workplace. Like, just because we all think of flights as flights doesn't mean it's not a workplace for someone. Like, they could be trying to protect their employees from any strong political
I mean,
views.
that is probably, sorry to go on a tangent, but that is probably where the kind of line is, I think, with businesses, where it's like you can have all the conversations in maybe a closed environment when you're at work or in the office or wherever you work, but you can't really have your employee... Well, I don't know, because this is interesting, actually. We should definitely talk about this. So people wearing poppies, rightly or wrongly, completely accepted.
Yeah.
Right? So newsreaders can wear a poppy, whatever. Arguably, whilst that might not be a political stance, it's showing affiliation with the war, etc., and making sure we don't forget and all that good stuff. But where is that line between... Because if I walked in, or like a pride badge, for example, it's like, where do you... Because if I walked in with like a pro-Trump badge...
Yeah. We'd be falling out.
I can see your face just getting more and more like...
This podcast is going to literally be titled Jenny Hates Trump.
And Jenny hates Trump, Marcus gets cancelled. But do you see what I mean? Like.
Yeah, I know. I think the line is being respectful, not being too controversial in what you're outwardly putting out there, and if you are entering a debate on it, trying to understand people's point of view. You don't have to agree, as you said. Like, you just have to be respectful. But it is a hard one, because I would struggle sitting and talking to someone who felt that abortion was like illegal.
Well, especially if they had a badge on them saying, like...
oh my God, from the Trump impact as well. There was people were wearing T-shirts that said, "Your body, my choice." Yeah,
that's mental, isn't it?
That's just so... That would have been banned in my workplace.
Yes. No, I agree. I concur with that. I think that whole thing is nuts.
It's so nuts. This is just one of the many...
Not to invalidate people of that opinion. It's your opinion, you're entitled to it, but I disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you just demonstrated so nicely how to be constructive disagreement. Okay, so next one. Is it real or fake news? Okay, so next one. Is it real or fake news? A fast food chain faced backlash after donating to a politician opposed to LGBTQ plus rights.
That sounds true. I'm just going true here because I obviously just read too much news.
I'm just like, you're like, I'll believe anything.
Yeah, no, I can feel like that would be in the realms of possible. The way you're looking at me now is giving fake.
Don't use my body language.
I would like to think I'd like to think it's fake, because how could you do that as a brand and think that was a good idea?
To donate to the politician.
What were the politicians supporting again? Anti-LGBT.
And they're opposed to LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that that's fake news, because you've got to be some sort of special to think that that's a good idea.
It is true, that one.
Who was it? Name
I can't remember.
Oh, no!
I know.
Surely not.
I'm going to have to post it in the comments.
In the description below. Yeah.
I literally, because I didn't want to put it in the notes, because then you'd see it.
Yeah. No, fair
enough. I can't remember.
I need to know. But that's a bit like the whole Bud Light thing, right? Did you see this? When someone trans became like a brand ambassador for them, and the whole like kind of Bud Light community really backlashed against it. Yeah, but that was clearly where there was that misunderstanding between who their audience actually is, and then
what message they're trying to portray.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Real or fake news? A tech company required all employees to submit their voting history as part of a workplace transparency initiative.
Crikey, that's... I'm going true, because you're giving me
You've gone true on every single one.
Yeah.
Why have you gone true?
Just because I think the world's fucked up enough for that to be a thing.
It's false. That's fake news.
Okay, good.
For you, we're not getting that kind of nanny state.
That's crazy though, isn't it?
Yeah.
If that was true.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
Let's hope that no one goes that into detail.
But with the way, your surveys and your quotas are going.
My surveys and quotas. Oh, let's not even get started on that.
So what do you think? So just going back to politics in general, and workplace stuff, what do you think the future, or what do you hope the future of kind of politics in the workplace, or politics and the workplace, I guess, not workplace politics, but what do you think that looks like?
I really hope that people businesses try and shut out the noise and stay true to what they know to be good for business. At the end of the day, they're trying to make profits, and some of these initiatives, they might think, well, it's just easy to scrap that and go with the movement. But I think the impact it will have on employees and creating inclusive workplaces, creating cultures that are enjoyable will be big. I think businesses need to stay tuned to what their employees want and really wake up to the fact that people do work for businesses where their values align. So sometimes having a view on stuff is okay, or encouraging slight conversations, but I don't think it should be a distraction to actually what you're there to do. Like, I think it's like anything, you come in and talk about what you did on the weekend. Like, you can come in and talk about politics in that same constructive manner, but it really is so divisive that there is a line of not wanting it to impact your productivity, and but also creating somewhere people feel they can be safe to speak up and express their opinions. Like, psychological safety is known to, which is feeling able to speak up, is known to improve team effectiveness, and it's got good impacts on the workforce. So yeah, I think it's all just about creating a culture and continuing to do so. I think politics is just another thing. It's this, I've mentioned religion already, but like, if you have strong religious views, trying to be respectful of other people and their religious views, and the fact that they might be praying at certain times of day and not taking issue with that, like, that's all about creating an inclusive workplace that helps businesses prosper. So yeah, I hope it doesn't it could go completely the other way, where people start putting policies, no politics at work, but I hope it doesn't. I hope it can remain constructive.
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely am an advocate of like having political conversations in the workplace, but I think there has to be, like, I think the utopia of kind of the fusion between politics and work is that everyone, like you say, has the space to share their opinion, knowing how to deliver an opinion or their opinion in a respectful manner, whether or not it is the consensus or not. Like you're saying there, it's good to have a diversity of thought, but I think we need to get far better at being able to share political views without it becoming too emotional and too divisive. Because where's the quote? And I don't want to butcher it, but here you go. Yeah, so you may not be interested in politics, but politics is always going to be interested in you. So if you can't, bridge the gap and get involved, then things are just going to be happening around you that are going to affect you, that you're going to not feel as if you can talk about. So I think if there's an environment where everyone can talk more about things they care about, then I think that can only make the workplace better. But that starts with respect, and it starts with inclusion, and it starts with just being able to like actually articulate yourself properly, which requires practice. And I think we all need more practice about talking about politics, in particular in the workplace, because like you say, politics is always going to affect business. So we have to be talking about it, but we have to get better at it, because I'm fortunate enough to have never worked somewhere where a political conversation's come up and it's had any real detrimental effect. But I can imagine in certain instances there has been scenarios where someone's had an opinion, it's been delivered in a way that wasn't respectful, people have then had a falling out, and then that's bad for business. So ideally that wouldn't happen,
And I sit here preaching about all the things that I think are right, but like, I would struggle working with someone who really strongly supported some of the things that I feel really strongly about. Like, it is in conflict, and it does impact your relationship with that person if you really can't, like, if you feel really strongly on an issue, which a lot of people do feel about politics. So it is a really interesting, like, thought process. And I guess if we were getting so sucked into it at work, I probably would get to the stage of, this isn't being constructive for any of us, and it's now impacting in a negative way our team cohesion and stuff. So maybe let's leave politics out of the workplace.
This has been the Work in Real Life podcast. I'm Marcus Farrell.
And I'm Jenny Winspear.
Catch you on the next one.